next thing coming, because they will talk and talk and talk and talk in circles and talk this way and talk that way forever.
Yep.
And so this was written by William Koenig's wife, or Koenig's wife. Her name's Tanya Koenig. And she says why Netanyahu moved up his U.S. visit, the Iran briefing, and the trust gap. And so it says here, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu abruptly moved up his scheduled visit to Washington this week to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump, not for a routine call, but to deliver an in-person intelligence briefing on Iran's escalating threat. The visit follows a recent assessment Netanyahu shared with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff during his visit to Israel, underscoring the importance Netanyahu places on how this information is conveyed. Israel and U.S. officials say the meeting will focus on Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs, its support for regional proxy forces, and the violent suppression of internal protests, all central elements of the Islamic Republic's power structure. Israel is determined that Washington's approach align with its core security priorities, not merely with narrow diplomatic progress. I had this sense that, Netanyahu, when he really wants to convey a message to Trump. There was something that's going on that he really felt he had to be there in person, face to face with Donald Trump to pass. It says why Netanyahu decided to come himself. According to Israeli media, citing sources close to the prime minister, Netanyahu chose to shorten the interval before his Washington meeting so President Trump would receive directly the same detailed briefing previously shared with Witkoff, ensuring no nuance or urgency was lost. Well, here's what I say about that. I don't think that Netanyahu trusts Witkoff. Israeli officials have stressed that accurate intelligence and unified threat perception are critical, particularly given the complexity of Iran's programs and indications that negotiated agreements could exclude elements Israel considers non-negotiable, including ballistic missiles and proxy warfare. It is also notable that Netanyahu chose to deliver this briefing personally rather than allowing envoy Steve Witkoff to carry the full weight of Israel's assessment. In diplomatic language, this can be framed as a courtesy. In strategic reality, it reflects something deeper. When the threat is existential, Israel does not want its warnings translated into deal terms or softened into process. Netanyahu chose direct delivery, prime minister to president, because this is not a negotiation problem. It is a survival problem. So interesting that they can't trust, he has to come face to face because they can't trust technology. The broader diplomatic battlefield, it says here. Netanyahu's visit coincides with a flurry of diplomatic activity involving U.S. envoys, Iran, and the Gulf states. The United States has been conducting indirect talks with Iran in Oman aimed at limiting Tehran's nuclear enrichment, but those discussions have faced significant hurdles. Iranian officials have signaled openness to what they call fair talks on nuclear issues while insisting that key elements remain non-negotiable. Internal unrest in Iran continues to shape the regime's calculations. Meanwhile, the Israeli and U.S. negotiators remain at odds over the scope of any potential agreement. Israeli demands include not only dismantling Iran's nuclear weapons program, but also placing limits on ballistic missiles and ending support for militant proxy groups such as Hezbollah. Provisions Iran has resisted and may continue to oppose. And why this matters strategically, the coordination between Jerusalem and Washington highlights a critical moment in U.S. Israeli relations and Middle East security. Netanyahu's decision to brief the U.S. president personally reflects both the gravity Israel assigns to Iran's capabilities and the importance it places on ensuring that its assessment is received without dilution at the highest levels. And it says for Israel, Iran's pursuit of nuclear capacity and long range missiles is not theoretical. It is an existential threat, one that has already reshaped regional dynamics, influenced defensive actions, and drawn U.S. military assets deeper into the region. President Trump's administration has stated that any negotiation with Iran must go beyond nuclear limits and include ballistic missile programs and regional proxy warfare, positions that align closely with the Israeli red lines. I haven't heard whether Iran has I mean, immediately they started dictating what they wouldn't talk about, and the ballistic missiles and all that stuff. They said that's off the table. So I don't know if any of these talks in this any of this they have talked about any of this at all.
They don't know how true that statement is, that it's off the table because we're going to blow it to
Yeah,
smithereens.
but they said
So,
they wouldn't even talk about it.
oh,
So
well, they don't have to talk about it.
yeah,
Pretty
because
soon there won't be anything to talk
yeah,
about.
they well, we don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's like I'm kind of surprised that there hasn't been any. It's very unclear at this point.
Yeah.
Trump wants a deal, but it's very unclear. And it says when intelligence precedes action, it is also worth noting that it is not the first time a high level meeting between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump has been followed by consequential actions beyond Israel itself. Remember, they had a meeting and Trump said, yeah, we're going to do something in 2 weeks. And boom, it happened like within 24 hours. you know,
Right.
it's so during Trump's current term, similar exchanges of intelligence and strategic planning were followed by decisive U.S. action on other fronts, including the unprecedented operation in Venezuela that resulted in the capture of course, Nicolas Maduro. All right. But anyway, Netanyahu's decision to accelerate his Washington visit and personally deliver intelligence reflects the high stakes surrounding Iran. I think she's kind of said this before. And of course, she said that a moment that requires discernment and prayer. This visit is not merely diplomatic, it is taking place at a moment when geopolitical danger and spiritual confusion are converging. Yes, a lot of spiritual confusion. Iran's nuclear ambitions, missile capabilities, and proxy warfare represent a clear and present threat. At the same time, the resurgence of anti Semitism, especially when cloaked in moral or theological language, signals a deeper disorder that Scripture has long warned about. For these reasons, this is a moment that warrants prayer prayer for wisdom and clarity for those making decisions at the highest levels, prayer that truth would not be filtered or softened, prayer that Israel's warnings would be heard with seriousness and sobriety, and prayer that discernment would prevail where confusion is pressing in. This is not a time for panic or rhetoric. It is a time to see clearly, speak carefully, and pray earnestly. Yes, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, right?
Amen.
You know? And then, of course, here were a few of Trump's remarks about this. He said, President Donald Trump said after a nearly 3 hour White House meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that there was nothing definitive reached beyond his insistence that negotiations with Iran continue, warning that if a deal cannot be consummated, we will just have to see what the outcome will be. As the Pentagon readies a second aircraft carrier for possible deployment to the Middle East. Speaking on a post on True Social following Wednesday's session, Trump described the meeting as very good, adding that the tremendous relationship between our two countries continues. On Iran, however, the president made clear diplomacy remains the immediate track, but not the only option. There was nothing definitive reached other than I insisted that negotiations with Iran continue to see whether or not a deal can be consummated. Trump wrote, if it can, I let the prime minister know that there will be a preference. If it cannot, we will just have to see what the outcome will be. Trump pointedly invoked Operation Midnight Hammer, the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities last year that capped the 12-day Israel Iran war, as the precedent for what follows failed diplomacy. Last time, Iran decided that they were better off not making a deal, and they were hit with Midnight Hammer. That did not work well for them, he stated. Hopefully, this time they will be more reasonable and responsible. The president added that he and Netanyahu also discussed what he called tremendous progress in Gaza and the region in general, concluding, there is truly peace in the Middle East. Maybe.
Mm.
Uneasy peace, let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
The Israeli Prime Minister's office, in a statement posted to X, said the two leaders discussed the negotiations with Iran, Gaza, and regional developments, with Netanyahu emphasizing the security needs of the state of Israel in the context of the negotiations. The two leaders agreed on continuing coordination and the close contact between them. Wednesday's meeting marked Netanyahu's seventh to, of course, the White House. And So Trump has repeatedly signaled that any agreement must extend beyond uranium enrichment to address missiles and other destabilizing conduct. I'd rather make a deal that's going to be a good deal, Trump said Tuesday in an interview with Fox Business, laying out his baseline in blunt terms. No nuclear weapons, no missiles, no this, no that. Mm-hmm. Um, and it says here the diplomatic push is unfolding against a sharply escalating military backdrop. So, what all is there? That, of course, the Pentagon's instructed a second aircraft carrier strike group. Officials cautioned that Trump has not yet issued a final order and plans could change, but one carrier, likely the USS George H.W. Bush, could be ready to deploy roughly within 2 weeks. The additional strike group would join the USS Abraham Lincoln, which Trump previously described as leading a massive flotilla or armada positioned as leverage. And on Tuesday, Trump warned Iran would be foolish not to make a deal. And then it says here that earlier Wednesday, Iran's regime marked the 47th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution, with state-backed rallies featuring the burning of American and Israeli flags, staged mock coffins bearing the images of senior U.S. military officials, including CENTCOM Commander General Bradley Cooper, and chants of death to America. Senior Iranian officials, including Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who personally led Tehran's delegation in last Friday's Oman talks with U.S. representatives, and Quds Force Chief Ismail Qaani, were present at the commemorations, underscoring the regime's direct role in the spectacle, even as Tehran engages in negotiations. So they're going into the boardroom and negotiating, yet they're out there with burning effigies, right? Oh, great. So anyway, I don't think that there can be much that you can do with them. I personally don't. But in the midst of all of this, with all of this craziness, Israeli Education Minister Yoav Kish sent an official invitation to U.S. President Donald Trump to participate in the Israel Prize ceremony to be held as part of Independence Day celebrations on April 22nd, 2026 in Jerusalem. The Israel Prize, the most prestigious state honor in Israel, established in 1953 to recognize exceptional groundbreaking contributions in fields like sciences, arts, humanities, and lifetime achievement. The invitation came in December after Kish announced he was nominating Trump for the highest award offered by the Jewish state due to his unique contributions to the Jewish people.
Hmm.
During Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's previous visit to the United States, when he met Trump at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida, Kish announced Trump's nomination for the prize, noting that it has never been awarded to a non-Israeli in Israel's history. According to the statement, the Education Ministry's decision to award Trump the prize was made in recognition of his exceptional leadership and enduring impact on the history of Israel United States relations. In the announcement, Kish specifically mentioned Trump's work in the fight against anti Semitism, his contribution to promoting the return of the kidnapped to Israel, and the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and the transfer of the United States embassy there. And it's kind of blocked out some of the things that there's a banner that went through and blocked this out. So it says here, according to the Israel Prize regulations, nominees must be Israeli citizens for at least 3 years before their nomination, with the exception of nominees for the Israel Prize for diaspora Jewry and or for a special contribution to the Jewish people, the bylaws state. Trump will be the first non-Israeli to receive the prize. Well, Trump always breaks the rules, right?
Yep. Yep.
Along with the invitation for Trump to come to Jerusalem for Independence Day to accept the award, the Ministry of Education also announced that a special golden statue has been designed for Trump.
Oh, he'll love that. A golden Trump.
My goodness. Oh, heavens. Yeah, it says here, let's see. What does it say? It's been designed for Trump as part of the prize presentation. The statue depicts the Star of David rising out of the stones of the Western Wall, symbolizing revival, future, and success. The ministry said the sculpture was designed by Ben Dror, a 24-year-old designer who served 600 days of reserve duty during the Gaza war. This is a heavy statue. When you hold it, you feel the weight of responsibility, but you see before your eyes resurrection and hope. The message is the president's help to the people of the book will be remembered in our history forever, said Quiche. But it's gold. That's the most important
And
thing.
you watch, they're going to have little commemorative statues of Donald Trump that you can get for,
Yeah.
$350. You can just imagine that being on your desk.
It says here Trump has not yet responded to the invitation to accept the award. Alongside the invitation to accept the Israel Prize in person, Channel 12 News report that Trump will also be invited to light a torch during the Independence Day ceremonies. Interesting. The invitation has already been conveyed to the president through lower level channels. However, there is an expectation that an official invitation will be sent in the near future. So, interesting. But they knew how to lure him. A gold statue.
Yeah, a gold statue. Yeah. Oh, I'll be there. Look at this statue. It's a great statue. It's a golden statue. I said to myself, what a great looking statue.
Best looking statue he's ever seen.
That's right. It's a beautiful statue.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in Turkey, a violent brawl erupted in the Turkish parliament on Wednesday, immediately before the swearing in of Akin Gürlik as the nation's new justice minister. The result of opposition lawmakers arguing that Gürlik was an inappropriate choice for the role. Reports differ on which side the ruling Islamist Justice and Development Party or the opposition secularist Republican People's Party started the fighting. Reports close to the Islamic strongman ruler Recep Tayyip Erdogan claimed that the CHP lawmakers attempted to physically prevent the inauguration, while the CHP lawmakers who were hurt during the melee claimed that the AKP lawmakers in the chamber attacked them. As of Thursday, CHP lawmakers were still arguing that Gürlik was not legitimately the minister of the country, although the swearing-in ceremony did occur after the lawmakers broke up the brawl. One CHP leader claimed that in part due to the chaos, the minutes of the parliament session did not properly record the inauguration, making it invalid. Gürlik is a I'm kind of trying to get to the next paragraph here to figure out why. Gürlik is a controversial choice for justice minister, as he served previously as the top public prosecutor in Istanbul and played a key role in the imprisonment of its mayor, Ekrem Imamoglu. Imamoglu, a CHP leader, is among Turkey's most popular politicians, who won 2 separate elections to become mayor in 2024 after Erdogan's ruling party attempted to nullify his first victory. He won the second election by a higher margin. The Erdogan regime arrested Imamoglu in March 2025 on dubious corruption charges levied by Gürlik. So evidently Gürlik does what Erdogan wants.
There you go.
Okay. The mayor stands accused of over 150 crimes and faces over 2,000 years in prison. Oh my.
Holy cow.
A typically over-the-top prosecution against political opponents in Erdogan's Turkey. So that's how they get things done over there, huh?
Yeah.
Images from the Turkish parliament on Wednesday showed lawmakers in suits beating each other bare-fisted, often going for each other's hands, and at least one man falling to the floor in the scrum. Some reports indicated that participants in the brawl took off their shoes, presumably to beat their colleagues with them. According to the opposition-friendly newspaper, and I can't pronounce the name of this, I think it's Cumhuriyet, 3 lawmakers were taken to the hospital after the brawl, though no one was seriously injured. Some reports indicated that the brawl began when some CHP lawmakers attempted to block the podium where Gürlik was expected to take his oath of office. So, and anyway, they're going back and forth in this article about, I'm assuming what you could do is roll the video back if you had video and find out exactly what happened. But
yeah.
So evidently one of the toadies, or one of the people that does Erdogan's bidding is being, you know, he's been, uh,
tapped to some sort of important job,
he's,
and
he's the new justice minister. So,
yeah,
so he's the new executioner, is what he
yeah,
is. Is what his job post is. He's because they were trying to swear him into office.
yeah.
Well, and which
Sounds
he will
like
probably never leave.
right.
Once he gets in there.
And he found some new customers in the parliament while,
Right.
while he was being sworn in.
Man. Oh my. Anti-Semitism in Australia is frightening and worrying. Israel's President Isaac Herzog despaired Thursday as he wrapped up a 4-day visit down under that generated angry protests everywhere he went. Australia is lost, I think. I mean,
Well,
if you're down there and you're Jewish, I would say that you need to get out.
yeah, yeah.
They were showing on Amir Tsarfati was showing the countries. I'd have to bring that up if I can. It spurred a thought to me, and I think I even shared that picture with you. If I can just go here real quick, yeah, here it is. It was posted on X from the World of Statistics.
Uh-huh.
The most popular names of children born in
Oh,
European
yeah.
cities:
Yeah, I remember that.
London, Mohammed; Manchester, Mohammed; Berlin, Mohammed; The Hague, Mohammed;
That's right.
Brussels, Mohammed; Amsterdam, Mohammed; Oslo, Mohammed. And of course, it follows there saying Europe has fallen.
Yeah.
The most popular names. So there you go. Now we're talking about Australia.
Yeah. What's the most popular name in Australia? Mohammed.
Maybe of children, babies born, right?
Yeah.
Uh, AFP reports Herzog's tightly policed visit was meant to console the country's Jewish community following the mass murder on Bondi Beach during a terrorist attack that targeted Jews and killed 15 people last December. However, it sparked demonstrations in major cities, including Sydney, where police used pepper spray on protesters during scuffles in the central business district on Monday. They're not, are they going to describe these protesters to us? I bet not. But I wonder if their names were Muhammad. Herzog told Channel 7 Sunrise ahead of his Melbourne stop a wave of anti Jewish hatred in Australia has culminated in the targeted mass murders at Bondi. It is frightening and worrying, he said, addressing the rise of anti Semitism sweeping the country. It's sweeping the world.
Yep.
And the Islamization of countries is sweeping the world, and they're trying it here. But there is also a silent majority of Australians who seek peace, who respect the Jewish community, and of course want a dialogue with Israel. And these peaceful majority Australians need to speak out against Islam. The Israeli head of state said that he brought a message of goodwill to the people of Australia to counter the fear generated by the Islamic State inspired attack at a Hanukkah event on the shores of Bondi Beach. I hope there will be a change. I hope things will relax. Well, you'll have to get rid of the Muslims.
Yep.
AFP further reports Herzog attended a Jewish community event after an evening with Victoria's state governor at Melbourne's government house. Protesters waved Palestinian flags and chanted slogans squared off with police outside the event. Herzog told the audience at the community event, we came here to be with you, to look and remember. He also said demonstrators outside should instead go protest in front of the Iranian embassy. Well, I think that it's an indication that anti-Semitism is not going away. It's rising.
Mm-hmm.
And these people are going to have to consider, I mean, it's hard, but it's come to that place. I mean, the Lord, he warned the people before World War II.
Yep, sure did.
You should go. You need to go. Of course, Israel didn't exist. It was there, but a lot of people did go there prior to World War II. But it's now that you have a state there, and I'm not, I don't want that to be. I hate it. I mean, it's like that's horrible, but it says in the Bible, that he's going to regather his children from the four corners of the world.
Yep.
And this is seemingly you're going to have to make that decision, unfortunately, now.
New York and Australia. If you're in New York, I guess you could move to Florida for a while. But,
if you want to stay here,
yeah,
it would be tough to be an American citizen and have to go to Israel,
yeah,
because of your Jewish ancestry. Because of course, if you're born in this country and a loyal American, right, that would be tough.
Mm-hmm.
Hamas vows not to lay down arms until Israel's elimination. Oh, the poor starving Hamas. Look at this dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's such starvation there.
Yeah,
and
he's eating good, isn't he?
yeah. Hamas will not lay down its weapons until Israel is eliminated, Osama Hamdan, a senior official in the terror organization, vowed on Wednesday. Where's old Osama Hamdan living, I wonder, Is he in Qatar? Where is he?
Part-time France.
Yeah. We have been very clear with mediators in our message passed on the relevant parties that the matter of the Palestinian weapons is linked to the presence or elimination of the occupation, stated Hamdan, referencing Israel in an interview with Al Jazeera. To this day, the Palestinian national motto states that the occupation needs to be eliminated. The weapons are legal according to international law and by virtue of the will of the Palestinian people, so these weapons will not be laid down until their goal is achieved, and not until they kill every Jew. He stated it right here. Eliminate the occupation?
Yep.
Hamas's official charter calls for the destruction of the state of Israel and refers to parts of the Quran that call for Muslims to kill Jews everywhere. Yes, it's part of their Quran.
Yep.
All right. They're not
written.
And so I'm not going to give any more space to him here. And of course, U.S. President Donald Trump warned on January 21st that the terror group would be blown away very quickly if it fails to lay down its weapons under the second phase of his administration's peace plan for Gaza. Speaking at a question and answer session in Davos, Switzerland, after his address to the World Economic Forum, the president said Hamas had agreed to give up its weapons as part of his 20-point plan. Well, somebody agreed for them, because actually Hamas itself has not agreed to that, right? And so phase 2 of the plan calls for Hamas to lay down its arms with the deployment of an international stabilization force to the Strip. Hamdan told Al Jazeera on Wednesday that the last thing the world should contemplate is sending forces to replace the occupation and clash with the Palestinians on behalf of the occupation. No Palestinian will accept this, he noted. Or he added, noting that since the United Nations Security Council voted to adopt Trump's plan for international forces, these countries should deploy at the borders and prevent the enemy, Israel, from going back to its aggression against our people. So, this is going on. I just wanted to give a few highlights. Like I said, I'm not going to give him and his rants any more breath, but that is how Hamas feels. That is what's going on.
There's an old saying, we got to do it to them before they do it to us.
Right.
It may be what it comes to, unfortunately.
Yes. I am going through all these articles rather quickly here tonight. So, I know what I didn't get. I didn't get a mirrors thing. I will look for that in a moment to see if there's anything. I didn't get it copied off, but I can maybe look at it online there. This is interesting. Another interesting development this week. Israeli Security Cabinet approves the greater Israeli control of Judea and Samaria, including the Tomb of the Patriarchs. And I think what is that one man's name? He was very happy about this because Jacob's altar, I think, is included in this. Anyway, it says Defense Minister Israel Katz and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, or Smutrich, I think is how it's said, announced on Sunday that the Security Cabinet had approved measures aimed at strengthening Israeli control over the territories of Judea and Samaria. Now, in the Western media, they call it the West Bank, but it's Judea and Samaria. The changes were formulated under the leadership of the Settlement Administration in the Ministry of Defense and are intended to reprove previous regulatory barriers for land purchases, repeal Jordanian era legislation against Jewish land ownership, and enable accelerated development of the settlements. Minister Israel Katz said in a statement, "The decisions we approve today are an expression of a clear policy strengthening the Israeli grip on Judea and Samaria, strengthening settlement and ensuring our future in this land for generations. Judea and Samaria are the heart of the country, and strengthening them is a top-notch security, national, and Zionist interest, Katz continued. This is a move that strengthens security, deepens the grip on the land, and anchors the vision of settlement as an integral part of the Israeli government's policy." Now, this could be the start of another war. This is so this is why I'm going into this a bit, because this is the PA is over in this area, and they want this area as their Palestinian country. Forget about Gaza. This is what they're looking for, the very heart of Israel, to take it. And that would include Eastern Jerusalem. Minister Bezalel Smotrich said, "We are normalizing life in Judea and Samaria, removing bureaucratic barriers, fighting on the ground, and deepening our grip throughout the land of Israel. This is the appropriate Zionist answer to anyone who tries to weaken our grip on the land. We will continue to kill the idea of a Palestinian state. We are here to stay, to build, and to be built." Yay, I would say. One of the most significant changes concerns land management in the territories. Previously, the land registry in Judea and Samaria was confidential, which made purchases by private citizens difficult and allowed for fraud. However, the cabinet ordered the removal of confidentiality and the publication of land registers intended to increase transparency and make land purchases easier. Additionally, the cabinet repealed a Jordanian era law which prohibited the sale of real estate to non Muslims. These two changes mean that Jews interested in purchasing land in Judea and Samaria no longer need to purchase land through registered companies or obtain special permits, making such purchases more like land purchases inside the Green Line. The Security Cabinet also decided to expand Israeli supervision and enforcement activities in areas A and B with regard to water violations, damage to archaeological sites, yay, that's the big one, and environmental hazards. Under the Oslo II Accords, which were signed by Israel and the Palestinian Authority in 1995, Judea and Samaria were divided into 3 areas of jurisdiction. Area A, which is under full control of the PA, which includes Jericho, unfortunately. I couldn't go there. While the IDF maintains the ability to operate for counterterrorism purposes, Area B is under Palestinian civil control, and Israeli Security Administration, while under Area C, is under full Israeli control. When I was there, most of the time, I was under Area C. One time I was in Area A, and that was Bethlehem, which meant my tour guide could not go with us. I mean, she couldn't go with us. We had to go and have a different tour guide. So the plan announced why the cabinet also transfers authority for building permits in the Hebron area from the Palestinian municipality of Hebron to the state of Israel. This controversial move would include the area surrounding the tomb of the patriarchs, where Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah are believed to be buried. The tomb has long been a site of dispute between Jews and Arabs. Under a previous agreement approved by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in 1997, called the Hebron Protocol, any construction changes in the Jewish settlement had to go through the municipality and civil administration. Following the cabinet's decision, changes will only require approval from the security establishment. In practice, this will create an almost complete separation of the Jewish settlement inside Hebron from the Palestinian municipality. It is proposed to grant the Hebron administration all the municipal powers required to take care of the Jewish settlers of Hebron, the cabinet decision said. The transfer of authority over the Jewish neighborhoods in Hebron will also cover the tomb of the patriarchs, including the tomb of the yeshiva next to it. These changes represent a significant change from the status quo and an almost complete reversal of the Hebron Agreement signed in 1997. Likewise, the cabinet decision aims to exercise authority over Rachel's tomb in Bethlehem's municipality by creating a dedicated municipal authority in charge of the maintenance and cleaning of the site. Alongside these moves, the government announced a renewal of the Land Acquisition Committee, a body that has not been in operation for around 20 years. The reactivation of this body will allow the state of Israel to carry out a proactive purchase of land reserves for future generations. Critics are calling the changes a dangerous expansion of Israeli control, which amounts to a de facto annexation. Well, good. That's what I say. Good. Chaim Ramon, a former deputy prime minister and justice minister, said the moves represent the latest attempts by Smotrich to impose a de facto annexation of Judea and Samaria. He warned the intention is to establish settlements everywhere, dismantle the Palestinian Authority, control 5 million Palestinians, and turn us into a binational apartheid state. Good.
Yes.
You should leave. The Palestinians need to leave. This is Jewish land.
Yep.
Anyway, this government's intention is to make it irreversible, and the settlements in the heart of the Arab communities will make the reality irreversible. He also lamented the fact that several prominent members of the opposition, such as Avignon Lieberman and Naftali Bennett, also support the settlement project in Judea and Samaria. Following the announcement, the General Secretariat of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation issued a statement on behalf of the member states condemning the Security Cabinet's approval of the changes. In the statement, the OIC said that Israel's colonial settlement policy constitutes a war crime and a flagrant violation of international law and relevant United Nations resolutions, foremost among which is the Security Council Resolution 2334 and the legal opinion issued by the International Court of Justice. Well, guess what? The United States just went poo-poo to these people too.
Right.
So, the Office of the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas also condemned the Security Cabinet's decision in a statement. These decisions are also violate all agreements signed between the Palestinian Liberation Organization and Israel, as well as international law and the resolutions of international legitimacy, and constitute a blatant violation of the Oslo Accords and the Hebron Agreement. Blah, 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 blah. Yep, like I said, I'm reading that because that could send us into a situation of another skirmish and another war there.
Yep, it could.
And yes, I do have the weekly newsletter from Amir Tsarfati. I can't remember that one came. That Security Council letter came from the Security Council cabinet thing came from All Israel News, Joel Rosenberg's thing. So his sites, he has two of them. And then so he's giving that information. I find it, it's I was also seeing that there is more Jewish prayer on the Temple Mount right now.
Yeah.
And they're not getting any kind of restrictions. In other words, the guards that are normally up there doing all of that, they're not stopping them.
No.
It's interesting.
It is.
The times we're in. And it says here, this is from Amir Tsarfati. He says, Shalom from the Jezreel Valley in Israel. I think that's where he lives. Everyone here in the Middle East continues in our hold pattern as the United States and Iran decide what they're going to do about each other. Other countries such as Turkey and Qatar and Russia are throwing in their 2 shekels of advice and warnings. Here in Israel, we saw our prime minister take his 6th trip to Washington, 7th to the U.S., where he held a 3-hour meeting with the American president. Meanwhile, back home, our military continued its preparation for a brief and violent visit to Iran. In other words, it's kind of business as usual. There's one more area where we can see business as usual. The world continues to rapidly move toward the great war promised in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Over this past century, we have been witnesses of the fulfillment of Ezekiel 36 and 37 taking place. Well, let's all get out our books later and read Ezekiel 36 and 37.
Yes, exactly.
God promised that he would bring his people back to the land, and in 1948, Israel became a nation once again. And who was the country filled with? Jews, exactly as God promised through Ezekiel when he said to the mountains of Israel, "But you, O mountains of Israel, you shall shoot forth your branches and yield your fruit to my people Israel, for they are about to come." And that was Ezekiel 36:8. The land is not promised to the Arabs, it's not promised to the Turks, and believe it or not, it's not promised to the church. Trust me, I live here. We welcome Arabs and Turks, and our doors are wide open for Christians. I know I am a believer in Yeshua living in Israel. This land was promised to the physical descendants of Abraham back in Genesis, and God always keeps his promises. Amen, right? But Amir, God also says through Ezekiel that when the people come back, he will put his spirit in them and they will walk in his statutes. Did God forget that part? First of all, snarkiness noted. Second, unless you've been in Tel Aviv during Pride Month, you have no clue how bad it can get here in Israel. However, rather than your statement lending credence to an analogical interpretation of Ezekiel's prophecies, it is an amazingly cool affirmation that we're in an era when prophecy is being fulfilled. For centuries, defenders of Scripture felt the need to concoct wild doctrinal theories explaining all the end time prophecies surrounding the nation of Israel for the simple reason that there was no nation of Israel. Now Israel's back, baby, he says. That's what he says here.
Back, baby.
Yeah, it's okay to let go of all of the replacement notions and analogy interpretations. Let go of your presuppositions and quit trying to read between the lines. Stop asking what the authors really meant and just read what they wrote. When you do, you'll realize that with the Jewish people back in the land, Ezekiel makes perfect sense. And we can see that we are living in the era when prophecy is being fulfilled at a rate not experienced in 2,000 years. It's truly staggering, right? Exciting. We are in, as much as we've talked about the dark things, it is, God felt that, you people right here on the earth right now, you're here for such a time as this. I've chosen you for this.
Yep.
And so evidently, even though bad stuff's coming, he felt that we can muscle through it. And so we're here and we just, we better get our popcorn and just, sit and watch. Sit and watch the things unfold,
It's
right?
better than a lot of stuff on TV.
Yes,
Believe
it
me.
is. As you read through this newsletter, keep Ezekiel in mind. Once again, chapters 36, 37 have been and continue to be fulfilled. And all the alliances needed for the war of chapters 38, 39 are coming together exactly as was prophesied. What a time to be alive. And he goes, yesterday I was blessed to have Pastor Barry and back with me for our Middle East and Beyond update. And he asked you to watch it and follow him on the Telegram channel. And I suggest you do that, right? And then he says, of course, Netanyahu in D.C. again. As I mentioned above, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu flew to Washington on Tuesday to meet with U.S. government officials. Originally scheduled for the end of the month, the Prime Minister moved up the short 42-hour trip. 42-hour trip. Man, yeah, due to the urgency of the Iranian situation. You got to have stamina because that's a long flight over and a long flight back. There is a concern that the scope of negotiations with Iran is quickly contracting. According to Vice President J.D. Vance, what we are focusing on right now is that Iran will not have nuclear weapons. Netanyahu's agenda, however, is much wider, adding to the nuclear issue such topics as limiting Iran's ballistic missile range, dismantling the proxy militias, and having strict, verifiable oversight within the nation. According to the Prime Minister, Iran has a stockpile of 1,800 to 2,000 missiles just waiting to be fired toward Israel. When the 3-hour meeting ended, President Trump said that no decisions had been reached, but both he and the Prime Minister agreed that negotiations must continue. Iran has already said that when it comes to deals, the nuclear program's off the table. What I believe will happen is that there will be a limited strike, which will force Iran to negotiate regarding their nuclear program. Will their concessions be in good faith? I doubt it. What will not happen is a regime change, nor will there be justice for more than 40,000 Iranian protesters who have lost their lives. Um, And Iran's justification for killing protesters, speaking of the 40,000 dead Iranians, according to Hassamuddin Haarizadeh, a regime security strategist, their massacre was necessary to purify Iran from non Muslims.
Mm.
Wow. Said in the same, I mean, didn't Adolf Hitler say the same thing?
Pretty much. Yeah.
He had to purify Germany from Jews?
Yep. That's why he came up with the super race. So
I know that for most Westerners, the statement is jaw dropping. As a Middle Easterner, though, it sadly makes a lot of sense. We'll ignore the fact that most of all the dead were Muslims, although many were from minority tribes. To understand Haarizadeh's statement, we must remember that Muslims do not derive their morality from inherent truths, internal conscience, or even from the Quran. Their standards for living are based solely on how Muhammad lived his life. As recorded in the Hadith and other writings, if Muhammad did something, it is right. When one looks at the life of Muhammad, the man's actions became more violent and legalistic as he gained power. Muhammad killed infidels, therefore, it is right to kill infidels and wrong not to kill infidels. Muhammad subjugated women, therefore, it is right to subjugate women and wrong not to subjugate women. Muhammad required unquestioned obedience to his orders. Therefore, Muslims must unquestionably obey the orders they are given by their religious leaders. To the Islamist mind, the killing the 40,000 was not wrong, and the killers should not feel bad about it. In fact, the exact opposite is true. It should be celebrated as an act of righteous obedience. Now, take what I've written and apply it to Hamas and what was done on October 7th. Do you now understand better why we can never allow them to weaponize again? On Sunday, Khalid Mashal, the Hamas leader abroad, spoke to the 17th Al Jazeera Forum in Doha, Qatar. He insisted that Hamas will not disarm, but will instead store weapons for later use. According to Mashal, Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt all agree with this approach. In addition, he claimed that the ceasefire will only last for 5 to 10 years before hostilities will once again resume, and he praised the October 7th massacre for opening a path to establishing a Palestinian state. If you were wondering how any sane person could speak in such a way, read my previous story about Iran's justification for killing protesters. Is it any wonder that Prime Minister Netanyahu is so determined to finish the job against Hamas? Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, if he really wants to get rid of all of Hamas, I guess he's going to have to go to Qatar.
Mm-hmm.
In 2026, Judea Samaria land reform, and that's what we were reading about here. The West Bank is a political term. The true name of the region is Judea and Samaria, and that's what we call it here in Israel. From 1948 to 1967, the area was controlled by Jordan. But when Israel soundly defeated the Arab alliance in the Six-Day War, the sovereignty over the region was returned to Jerusalem, where it belonged. Then came the Oslo Accords in the early 1990s, when the land of the West Bank was separated out for the Palestinian Authority. Since that time, Israel has been afraid to purchase land in the area and to carry out perfectly legal activities. Unfortunately, the West Bank has been a constant source of terrorism perpetuated by Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and other groups. This is crescendoed following the October 7th attacks. Israel has had enough and has passed a 3-pillar reform, allowing Israelis access, registry transparency, purchase rights, and verified ownership data, among other normal business practices. Immediately, this action was condemned by Arab nations who still hold out empty hopes for a two-state solution, or who regularly use the two-state solution as a political weapon. Essentially, what this action accomplishes is to put a final stake through the heart of a potential Palestinian state. That's why I was saying, yay, when I was reading these things.
Right.
And he titled this section, I've Got a Friend in You. The alliance between the United States and Israel remains strong. In the American 2026 National Defense Strategy, Israel was identified as a model ally. I don't have time here to get into the way a Christian mother and a believing U.S. ambassador have profoundly impacted this alliance in the past, but you can hear the story on yesterday's update. Unfortunately, because I know scripture, I recognize that this close international relationship will one day fall apart. There is another alliance whose ties get stronger by the day. Turkey, Russia, and Iran have united to form a close knit relationship. Surprisingly, the Saudis are beginning to pal around with this alliance. There's nothing formal because Tehran and Riyadh hate each other for many reasons. But the Saudis are still Arab. And if Iran falls, then there is no more strong foil against Israel in the Middle East. We know that during the Ezekiel War, Saudi Arabia, known as Sheba and Dedan, will watch and tisk the armies approaching Israel, but they will not help either side. For Saudi Arabia now, though, the enemy of my enemy keeps my enemy's attention in a direction other than me. Meanwhile, Turkey is forming alliances in Africa, along with their Middle Eastern relationships with the Saudis and the Jordanians. They are becoming close with Libya, Sudan, Eritrea, Somalia, and others. A number of these countries are mentioned in the Ezekiel War axis of evil. As I wrote when I began this newsletter, prophecy is being fulfilled before our eyes. The necessary alliances for the Ezekiel War aren't forming, they're already formed. The time is close, which is why my writing partner, Steve Yohn, and I felt it so essential to get our novel, The Next War, out to the public. This book will put you in Israel as the Axis armies are approaching, and you'll feel the helplessness and experience the fear as you watch an unbeatable army marching toward you and your family. I would highly encourage you to pre order your copy of, and it's called The Next War. And then, of course, he goes on to talk about the ministry. He says the current generation of young adults are being bombarded by deception through universities, television, and social media. We've been talking about that, haven't we?
We have.
At Behold Israel, God has called us to meet those lies head on. And and he says this has led us to launch Gen Zion. By connecting scripture, Israel, and current events, Gen Zion equips Gen Z with biblical truth in a noisy, divided world. So if you want to know about that for the young people, he spells it capital G, then EN, and then capital ZION. So Gen Zion. Like think of Gen Z, but put ION on it, right?
Yep.
And he has a website here. So I encourage you go to Behold Israel, and you can find out more about that for the Gen Zers. But that's a little catch up of things from Amir Tsarfati, in our man on the ground there in Israel. So he's seeing it, we're seeing it, we're all seeing it. It's coming close, all of this that's happening, lining up. I had to take a drink.
Yep.
So, and now I'm down to my archaeological story there, which I thought of his name now, Aaron Lipkin. I think that's his name, Aaron Lipkin. He's the one that made a statement. Let's see if I can find it quickly, if he's got it here. I think, yes, he's the one that posted this. A major policy shift. For the first time since the Oslo Accords, the Israeli government has decided to take responsibility for the Area A and B, areas that until now were under the sole archaeological jurisdiction of the Palestinian Authority.
And that's why they're allowing prayer on the Temple Mount, because they knew it was probably going to happen.
This move is a direct response to the ongoing neglect and destruction of world-class heritage sites, most notable Joshua's altar on Mount Ebal. And that's been the big one for him, because the Palestinians have been going in there and trying to destroy that. And he goes, we can no longer stand by while this history is being erased. Protect these ancient treasures is now national priority. And he's got a picture there of, you can't see it, but that is That is Joshua's altar, the actual altar that Joshua built.
Awesome.
And that is
Awesome.
they know because it's not like made with hewn stone. It's with stacked stone, and that's the commandment that was given. That when they built these altars, they didn't use hewn stone. They just stacked stones. But so in this talking about this control of Judea and Samaria, this is part of it and coming under that and long overdue um, to protect some of this stuff. And now I am down to my archaeological thing. Is there anything else that you want to pass along to anything you want to talk about at any point?
I think we've done all we can do here.
We've done all we can do here, huh?
Yep.
All right. Well, let's look at this. See this little thing? It looks like a cough drop to me.
Cool.
But it is the stone seal from the biblical kingdom of Judea discovered during construction in northern Israel. And the seal, this is a little tiny seal you make impressions with. It says, is made of a light brown gemstone, is thought by archaeologists to have been hung like a necklace around its owner's neck and decoratively divided into three. So it says here the stone, believed to have been used by a ranking administrative official during the time of the Kingdom of Judah in the late 8th century BC, was discovered by the Israel Antiquities Authority during excavations in northern Israel. The dig was led by archaeologist Dr. Amir Gorzalatsky. I don't know how to say that. Gorzalkzani, I think, Gorzalkzani and Gerald Finkelstein. The IAA shared the find in a Wednesday post to social media, adding that the excavations had taken place as part of the construction of Ein Tut interchange. So they're building roads around there in Israel, and they're finding these things, and it's the way it happens in Israel with construction. And when they dig into things and they have to call the archaeologists, and
Right.
say, what have we done here? The seal, made of a light brown gemstone, is thought by archaeologists to have been hung like a necklace around its owner's neck and is decoratively divided into three parts. 4 pomegranates are carved into the upper section of the seal, while the other 2 sections contain an ancient Hebrew inscription reading, belonging to Mahach, son of Amichai. The IAA explained. The importance of the seal derives both from its contribution to the treasury of biblical names and from the fact that, unlike most seals of its type, the seal's origin is from an organized archaeological excavation and not from antiquities collectors. In other words, they know where it came from. The late archaeologist David Amit had said of the discovery. Amit deciphered the inscription alongside Dr. Esther Eshel of Bar Ilan University. And it says other artifacts with the royal seal also found at the site. Pieces of jar handles bearing royal seals were also found at the site, impressed with the words belonging to the king. And the names of Hebron and the ancient city Ziph, 2 important administrative cities at the end of the First Temple period. Such seal impressions are a common find at biblical sites in the Judea region, Gorzalkzani said of the findings. However, their presence at a site so northern, deep within the territories of the biblical kingdom of Israel, is most surprising. So, of course, Israel was the northern kingdom. Judah was the southern kingdom. So they found this one. But they do. There's the 4 little pomegranates and then ancient Hebrew. So I guess if we keep going on with Vern's teachings, maybe someday we'll actually be able to read that.
We'll be able to read that without having to consult
Who knows?
Vern.
Yeah, maybe. So that's what we're doing Wednesday nights. This coming Wednesday night, Vern's got to take care of some personal business, so we won't be having Hebrew class this coming Wednesday. But tomorrow evening we will have Shabbat.
Yep.
And then we'll be back again for this show next Thursday. And we're coming up close. February's running out, and pretty soon it's going to be time for Purim. So we are going to be holding Purim on a Wednesday night during the Hebrew class, and so
Yeah.
I don't know what all antics will be going on at that point, but we
Well,
will be doing that coming up. So
we'll bring a few bottles of wine. Yeah. I remember Rabbi one year, he was like, "You're bringing wine? I'll drink with you."
Yeah. So but I don't know. But I'm assuming we will be reading the story of Esther. I'm assuming. But of course, Vern keeps talking, but he wants to have a trivia thing. So maybe not in what he's envisioning this year, but maybe we'll do a little bit of that. Who knows? Uh, you know. And it would be trivia about the book of Esther. So if you want to be brushing up on your knowledge, you need to read the book of Esther before Purim comes up, so you'll know the players and you'll know some of the specifics and all that kind of thing.
It's only 8 chapters. Just memorize it.
Just memorize it. Yeah, beginning to end there. Be set for trivia, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, as again, like I said, tomorrow evening, join us for Shabbat. Brother, can you believe it's time for Shabbat again?
Yes.
Weren't we just here? I don't know. It
Yep.
just seems like I'm meeting myself coming and going because time is going so fast.
Yep. I know how you feel.
Yeah.
I'm doing the same thing. So yep.
And so all righty. So if you want to help keep this program coming your way, Jim will tell you how.
If you'd like to make a donation, you can send it through the mail to Truth in Life Today. Almost did it again. A P.O. Box. It's 1301 Enterprise Way, Suite 63, Marion, Illinois 62959. That's 1301 Enterprise Way, Suite 63, Marion, Illinois 62959. And in your envelope, stick a little note in there. Tell us how you'd like your donation to be used.
Yes, we got possibilities to help keep this broadcast coming. It costs money. It does cost money every month to do that. So
It do.
So we appreciate any help that you could pass along to us. Sorry to the Rumble people if I, mess up. Hopefully we're back on track here and can keep things coming on Rumble, Twitch, and on YouTube. So
and earlier on, we had so much trouble with what was going on, folks. Whenever we log on, it's kind of like a parking lot. Everybody who logs on to Restream, our platform that puts all this stuff together, we're basically getting a parking spot. And sometimes something tries to move us out of our parking spot. And so a while ago, it was clocking so bad. What I did was I ended this stream and I started another. We got another parking spot and it was working better. So if you see 2 entries in YouTube and Rumble, be sure to watch both.
Yes.
Because one's part 1 and the other's part 2.
There you go.
So there you go.
It happens. Oh, well. So, like I said, join us tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. Central Time for Shabbat. And again, next week, usually we're here, 7 p.m. Central Time, same time, same place on Thursday evening. And until we see you again, shalom, everyone.
Shalom.